I walked off the transport ship carrying one bag and a sword case that had more dents than the dock walls around me. The station smelled like recycled air and machine oil, which is what every station in the galaxy smells like once you have visited enough of them. I had visited enough of them. 7 Valorian soldiers were waiting at the gate. They were tall, iridescent, and wearing armor that probably cost more than my entire neighborhood back home. Their captain had compound eyes that caught the light in a way that would have unsettled me 30 years ago. Now I just noticed them the way you notice a cloudy sky. Present, noted. Moving on. The captain looked at me for a long time. Then he looked at his wrist panel. Then he looked at me again. The princess requested a swordmaster of the legendary class, he said through his translator bead. His voice came out flat and mechanical, but the confusion underneath it was clear enough. The Human Confederacy sent this? My name is Elias Vorn, I said. He looked at his panel again. Something changed in how he was standing. It was subtle, the way these things usually are. His shoulders dropped about half an inch, and he stepped to the side without saying another word. That is the only introduction I have ever needed. I am 67 years old. My hair went white at 50, and my knee started clicking at 55, and I have had the same travel bag for 22 years, because I keep forgetting to buy a new one. I do not look like what people expect when they ask for the best. I stopped worrying about that a long time ago. What you look like and what you are have never had much to do with each other, in my experience. The escort led me through the station, and onto a ship called the Vel Sora. It was a beautiful vessel, long and curved, built from Valorian crystal alloy that shimmered faintly even in artificial light. I followed the soldiers down a corridor that was too tall for me, and into a briefing chamber where Princess Athen Seal was waiting. She was not what I expected either. I had read her file on the transport over, third heir to the Valorian conclave throne, 29 years old by their calendar, educated in 4 languages and 2 combat disciplines, and galactic treaty law. The file made her sound like a document. She was not a document. She sat at the head of the table with violet skin and silver eyes, and the particular stillness of someone carrying a very heavy thing and choosing not to show it. She did not look at me the way the captain had. She just looked at me. I did not request a legend, she said. I requested the best. I am told those are sometimes the same thing. I am also told that legends often disappoint in person. They usually do, I agreed, and sat down without being invited, because my knee was bothering me, and I was not going to stand on ceremony when there was a chair available. She almost smiled, then she opened the briefing. The situation was straightforward in the way that only extremely complicated situations manage to be. The Keth Dominion, a faction that had been quietly expanding its territory for 2 decades, had invoked something called the right of adjudication. It was an old law, thousands of years old, still technically binding under 17 different species treaty frameworks, and it settled disputed territorial claims through single combat between chosen champions. The Dominion had done this 3 times in the past decade, and won all 3. They were very good at picking laws that suited them. Their champion was named Drav Keth. He was 9 feet tall and had been engineered across 4 generations of selective breeding to do exactly one thing, which was to fight the right and win it. He had fought 11 times. He had won 11 times. 3 of his opponents survived. The file did not elaborate on what happened to the others. The Valorian champion, Commander Yikal, had broken both arms in a patrol accident 3 weeks before the right was called. The timing was almost certainly not an accident. And so, Athen Seal said, folding her 6-fingered hands on the table, I looked across the galaxy for someone who could win this. And they sent me, I said. And they sent you, she agreed. She paused. I notice you haven't asked if you can beat him. I read the files you sent, I said. I didn't feel the question was necessary. This time she did smile. It was small and quick, and she put it away just as fast, but I caught it. The ship departed that night. We had 3 days of transit before reaching the station where the rite would be held. I spent the first morning unpacking my sword case in the training bay and running through the same 12-movement form I had been practicing since I was 19 years old. By the second hour, there were 8 Valorian soldiers watching from the observation deck above. By the 4th hour, there were 23. I did not perform for them. I never perform. A sword is not a show. It is a geometric problem, and the solution to a geometric problem does not require an audience. You need the correct angle, the correct distance, the correct timing. Everything else is decoration, and decoration gets people killed. On the second day, Ethan Seal came herself. She sat in the observation deck and watched me work through the form for 2 hours without saying anything. I respected that. Most people cannot watch someone do the same thing for 2 hours. They want variation. They want excitement. They want to be entertained. The ones who can sit quietly and watch something simple repeated until they understand it are the ones worth talking to. "Is that all you do?" she finally asked. "Yes," I said. "Why?" "Because it is the only 12 movements that matter." She was quiet for a moment. Dravketh uses 47 distinct combat techniques. Our analysts cataloged them from his previous rights. "I know," I said. I read the files. "And? He will not use any of them on me." She leaned forward slightly. "Why not?" I stopped the form and looked up at her. "Because I will not give him time." She did not ask me to explain further. She understood enough, I think, or she trusted enough, which sometimes amounts to the same thing. That evening she asked if she could see the sword. I opened the case and handed it to her, and she held it carefully, the way someone holds a thing they know has a history. It was an old blade, not ornate. The handle was plain wrapped leather, replaced 3 times over the years. The blade had been repolished so many times, it caught the light cleanly, without drama. "What is it called?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "Tools do not need names. They need to be in good condition. This one is." "Most things worth fearing are lighter than I expected," she said quietly, still looking at the blade. "Yes," I said. "They usually are." She handed it back carefully, with both hands, which is the correct way to return a weapon to someone. I noticed that. On the third night, I could not sleep, which is normal before a fight, even when the fight belongs to someone else. I found an observation deck on the port side of the ship, and sat there watching stars I did not recognize slide past in the dark. After a while, I heard footsteps, and Ethan Seal appeared and sat down without asking permission, which I appreciated. We talked for a long time. She told me about her planet, about cities built from living crystal, that hum in the wind and turn the light into colors that do not have names in any human language. She told me about her people, and what the Dominion actually wanted, which was not the territory in the contested rim, but the precedent. Win one right, and 17 species see a path. Win enough rights, and old laws become a weapon that never runs out of ammunition. She talked about her home, the way soldiers talk about theirs, when they are far away, and something they love is at risk. With control, with care, holding the emotion at arm's length so it does not become grief before it has to. I listened. 50 years of students and soldiers, and people who needed to say something out loud before the world asks something hard of them. You learn to receive what people give you, without making it about yourself. After a while, she asked if I had been afraid before my battles. "Every time," I said. "How did you manage it?" "I let it mean something," I said. "Fear is the body confirming the stakes are real." The soldiers I worried about were the ones who stopped being afraid. That meant they had decided it did not matter anymore. That is a different kind of danger. She looked at the stars for a while. "I have been afraid for 6 months," she said. "Good," I said. "That means you have not given up." She did not say anything after that, but some of the weight she had been carrying with such careful posture seemed, just slightly, to settle into something more comfortable. Not gone, just redistributed. Sometimes, that is the best you can do. We reached the right station the next morning. It was built into an asteroid at the edge of the contested rim, a stone arena with gravity plating in the floor, and a transparent dome overhead that opened the ceiling to open space. Stars everywhere above, cold stone everywhere below. The delegations from 17 species filled the observation tiers. The Dominion occupied one side of the arena in dark formal dress. The Valorian court occupied the other. 7 of the neutral delegations had quietly suggested, through back channels, that the Valorians consider surrendering to avoid embarrassment. I walked into the arena carrying my sword. The crowd noise fell away, not because of anything impressive about how I entered, just because they were expecting something else, and I was what they got instead. and the gap between expectation and reality tends to create a brief silence in any crowd. Dravketh entered from the opposite gate. 9 feet is taller than it sounds when you are standing on the same stone floor as it. He moved the way engineered things move, without hesitation or inefficiency, every motion serving an exact purpose. He carried 2 blades, each one longer than I am tall, 4 generations of intent and selective breeding, walking toward me across cold stone. He looked at me for a moment, then he said something that his translator rendered as, "They sent a relic." "They sent what you needed," I replied. "You do not know what that is yet." He came fast. That was not a surprise. Size and engineering tend to produce confidence, and confidence tends to produce speed. He opened with a committed sequence, the kind of opening I had seen in the files, designed to end things quickly and completely. He did not finish it. A body that large, moving that fast, carries an enormous amount of momentum. People think momentum is a gift to the big fighter. It is not. Momentum is mine, if I know where to stand. And I have spent 50 years learning exactly where to stand. I did not block him. I did not try to match his force with mine, which would have been like trying to stop a transport ship with my hands. I moved to the exact position where his own committed motion became a problem for him, and not for me, and I redirected. And 9 feet of engineered combat organism hit the stone floor with a sound that echoed off the dome above us. He got up. He was not built to stay down. I respected that. He came again, and again, each time with something from his catalog of techniques, each time meeting the same 12 movements in different arrangements, each time finding that committed force and superior size are enormous advantages against almost everything, except a man who has spent his entire life studying committed force and superior size. The crowd changed during those 4 minutes. The nervous energy and the tears shifted into something quieter and more focused. I could feel it without looking. People recalculating, numbers that had seemed obvious suddenly requiring review. On his 4th approach, Dravketh's 2nd blade left his hand, not because I took it, because a wrist that has been redirected against its own torque enough times eventually fails structurally. He stood in the center of the arena, holding one blade, his other arm hanging wrong, and looked at me with the compound eyes of something that had never been in this position before. Under the terms of the right, inability to continue was sufficient. He stepped back. He did not fall. He did not surrender dramatically. He simply recognized what had happened, which I thought was the most honest thing I had seen in the entire arena, and he stepped back. I walked toward the Valorian gate. My shoulder was bleeding from a graze in the 2nd minute. My knee was announcing its displeasure at the cold stone. I was breathing harder than I would have liked. The body at 67 files complaints in ways it did not at 35, and it sends them all at once when it thinks you might finally have a moment to receive them. Ethan Seal was standing at the gate. She was holding herself very still in the way she had held herself still in the briefing room, except that the thing she was holding carefully now was not composure under pressure, but something warmer and less diplomatic. "I told you I did not feel the question was necessary," she said quietly. "You were right," I said. "You usually are." Behind us, the Valorian court had erupted into noise. The neutral delegations were already sending revised communiques. The Dominion was leaving very quietly. 17 species were revising calculations they had been confident about for years. Ethan Seal looked at me for a moment longer. Then she walked with me to the medical bay and sat down while the ship's medic worked on my shoulder, and she did not need to be there, and she stayed anyway. We talked about small things, my home, her home, stars seen from different angles, given different names by people who had never compared notes. When the medic finished, she asked if I had any reason to return to the Confederacy immediately. I told her I had no pressing appointments. She said the Velsora was comfortable. There were 12 observation decks. The treaty negotiations would take at least a week. I told her I had noticed the observation decks. "Then perhaps you might stay," she said, very carefully, "as a guest." "I might," I said. Outside the viewport, the stars were different on this side of the station. New angles, new arrangements, new names waiting to be learned. I had time. For the first time in a long while, I had nothing but time, and the right person to spend it with, and stars neither of us had named yet. That, I thought, was enough. More than enough. It was, in fact, exactly what I needed.